Hello, my name is James, you're watching Macabre Manscape, and today is a very exciting video, I think. We're going to be counting down my top 15 albums of 2025. I know this is a little late, we are fully in the second week of January, but I don't really believe in making the list until the year is good and over, especially since I am a small content creator. I don't get promos, I don't get sneak peeks of what's to come, so who knows? Something good can come out at the end of December, or even by like the last week of November. A few rules that I made for myself. I need to have the physical copy of the album in order to include it in the year-end list. I listened to 230 albums this year, and that's just new releases. And I don't finalize my thoughts on any record until I actually get it in, so it has to be good enough for me to want to get it, and it has to be available on a physical format that I care to buy. That's usually CDs, but I will also accept cassettes. And it has to have arrived by the end of the year for me to have listened to it and form an opinion. Some of these did show up in my best of year so far list from July 1st. I'm just kidding. You guys know that shit was August. So when it comes to those, I'm going to try to keep it really, really brief, just to avoid having this be really long. I did make some notes that I'm going to kind of periodically look at to talk about things. Let's get started. Number 15 is Amongst the Ruins by Sir, which is, I believe, how you pronounce this name. This was released on February 7th by Season of Mist. Sir is a Scottish one-man band, I believe, and he plays a very atmospheric and melodic form of folk-infused black metal. So it is incredibly majestic, with folk instrumentation and keyboards and pianos and guest vocals over black metal abrasiveness. It's so good, but it's not really the kind of thing that I would probably put on for casual listening, which is why it is so low on this list, but still cracked my top 15. Number 14 is Blood Eclipse by Slowfall. This was released on May 16th by Out of Line Music. They are a progressive melodic death metal band out of Finland, and 2025 was a great year for melodic death metal and progressive melodic death metal also. Just, there was quite a few of those I listened to, and I think Slowfall is kind of the best of its ilk, at least from what I heard. They do a good job of mixing that melodic death metal core with proggy, choppy rhythms and grooves, and then atmospheric keys, which I have mentioned before that I don't love mixing melodic death metal with keys, just because oftentimes it's just melody on melody, the point kind of gets lost. But this band really does incorporate those two things quite intelligently. There's soaring guitar solos, 80s proggy style guitar solos, and classical piano, and it just really meshes that atmospheric progressive side with that aggressiveness of melodic death metal. There's also a lot of clean vocals on this. The clean singing is really, really good, but when it does let that kind of the clean singing take precedence over the sound, there's definitely a little more of a gothic metal kind of vibe to it. So it's an interesting combination of things. It's really good melodic death metal and really nice progressive metal in that way, where my favorite form of progressive metal is kind of ill-defined extreme metal with varying just kind of aspects that don't really put it away into one square. It is really, really good. I recommend checking it out. My number 13 is an album that I've talked about previously on this channel, I believe twice, when I did it, when I did a haul, and then when I did my best of the year so far list back in August, and that is Pearl Hunting by Belmort. Pearl Hunting was released on January 24th, and on Wormhole Death, I believe? Yes, Wormhole Death. This band is from Belarus, and they play kind of a late 2000s style of symphonic gothic metal. Think Stream of Passion, or mid-early career Exandria, or even Eyes of Eden, stuff like that. Female-fronted, atmospheric, commercially viable, but not necessarily poppy. And on this sophomore record, they added some really nice progressive world kind of influences to their sound by having all these guest musicians playing various world instruments, on their record. Just, come, we have the song, come do your thing on it, and just incorporate your instrument just into the fabric of that song. And I think it pays off incredibly. They even have in the booklet, and I've showed this off before, but all the guest musicians have little bios and little details about their instrument and the history of their instrument and the culture it's from. It's just a really like nicely done way of like elevating your symphonic gothic metal. It's a formula that works, and they augmented it in a way that I thought was very, very tasteful. Number 12 is Anadonia by Lord Agueros. This was released January 3rd on My Kingdom Music, and I have talked about this record a few times on this album, and I previously was a lot more fond of it. It's still a great record. It's landed number 12 on my list, but it used to be number 2 and it has come down quite a bit. I just realized that some of the performances weren't as strong as I previously thought. Time reveals some weaknesses to you, but it's still a really strong album. This is an ambient black metal project out of Italy, one-man band again. When I say ambient black metal, that ambience really takes precedence. This is an album that is built on keys and piano sampled folk instrumentation or classical sections and like children's choirs and folk singing. It is an album defined by its ambience. Not quite gothic in tone, but it definitely has an off-kilter dreariness to it that really meshes incredibly well with that black metal undercurrent whenever it does pop up. So it's like maybe 45 to 55% black metal at any given point. This is starting to shape up like a very black metal heavy list. Just based on looking at this, you'd think I'm a lot more into black metal, and I actually am. That being said, my number 11 is The Apocalyptic Aeon by Abdigata. This was released on November 28th by At Dawn Records. This is a Swedish band, almost like a supergroup of sorts. Speaking of supergroups, this is actually the album that kicked off the halo effect from this list. This was a late edition, and if it weren't for this, the March of the, what is it? Oh my god, the March of the Unheard would have been my number 15. Abdigata play some just really good melodic black and death metal. This album fucking rips. They do a good job of marrying their black and death metal with these like subtle keys that give this looming, menacing atmosphere. And there's some occasional clean vocals that really kind of like balance out the rough edges. Like it softens it a little bit and gives a nice contrast. The one downfall of this album specifically is the closer, Luciferian, feels a little underwritten for how grandiose the tone of that song specifically is. It's not terribly out of line with the rest of the album, but it's just kind of, it's not as strong of a closer. And I think if it was slightly more developed, this album could probably end up higher up on the list. Because to me, album closers matter. I'm sorry. How you choose to close your album is one of like the most important things that you could do. So yeah, if that closer, Luciferian, was a little stronger, this would probably be maybe 1 or 2 slots up. My number 10 is an album that I've previously talked about and gushed about, and that is As Darkness Falls by the Obsidian Resurrection. This was released independently on January 10th of last year. This is kind of a comeback record. It is a debut, but this band did release a demo about 20 years ago before reforming during the pandemic, changing their name, and finally getting to releasing an album. They are based out of the western part of the United States, and they play a symphonic blackened death metal style. This is such a throwback just by looking at it. First of all, this is an example, right? Look at the artwork. It's all hand drawn. I'm actually wearing the shirt. I did buy merch. But they embrace DIY spirit, and that also goes for how they incorporate symphonics into heavy metal. It is very old school. It is layers of keyboards and synths, piano, and their keyboards actually plays cello on this. And that big kind of keyboard-driven sound is something I have been kind of nostalgic for lately. It speaks to me, especially as I'm exposed to a lot of these like expensively programmed symphonic metal bands. Having a keyboard, a very accomplished keyboardist in your band and having them drive your symphonics is a great throwback and a great feel. It makes it feel like it really is a band playing. They build an epic hellscape. It's only 8 tracks, but it's quite a long album. It's over an hour long, but it never feels like it's wasting your time. It's always urgent and pressing, and it always has my attention, and it is fucking epic and heavy and brutal. You should check it out. They have since really signed to Metal Incorporated, I believe is the record label out of Canada, and they are currently recording stuff for the follow-up record, so stay tuned for that. My number 9 is 1,000 Little Deaths by Blackbriar. This was released on August 22nd by Nuclear Blast Records. This is a band based out of the Netherlands. They play symphonic rock mixed kind of with symphonic gothic metal. They used to have my attention a lot. That's why, and then they quickly lost it. Right, as they started releasing more EPs and more albums, I kind of fell out of love with their style. And they kind of do only have one style. They have one personality. And, you know, that personality is good, but it started to pay off less and less for me. That being said, I was very surprised with how much I really enjoyed this album, because it is just hooky, endlessly catchy. It's kind of spooky, dark fairy tales. Infused into their sound. I mentioned for As Darkness Falls, I really love when a band's atmosphere is defined by its keyboardist and it really integrated by the band into the band. And this band is not quite that way. They do have a keyboardist and piano player, but this was arranged by Joost van den Broek, who used to be in After Forever, and he did a great job arranging their last album, and has since kind of become like the blueprint for modern symphonic metal. To some extent, that is like, you know, Mark Jansen and Thomas Holopainen, their orchestration styles also kind of helped build what has now become modern symphonic metal. But Joost van den Broek is very notable in that regard as well, and a lot of bands tend to use him or try to sound like they are, and so it has caused this flattening of symphonic metal. And I think Blackbriar kind of managed to escape this just simply because they have so much personality. And like, again, it is one, it's kind of samey, it's one personality, but the album really does deliver on that personality, and it's really good, just really catchy. It's not challenging in any way, but it is quite it's listenable and very, very nice. And it bamboozled its way onto my all the way to number 9 on my best of year list. Oh my god, he shaved! We have a little time jump, and we are back at things with number 8 being Otra by In the Woods. This was released April 11th by Prophecy Records. This is a band I've been meaning to get into for a while, though they started off in Norway's black metal scene in the 90s. They quickly morphed into more of a proggy, gothic-y, doom, extreme metal project. You know, we're talking long songs, sorrowful melodies, big atmosphere. The album art isn't anything, you know, to look at, but it does deliver like a heady experience. It definitely takes its time to unfurl, and it does take a while for it to grow on you. I know it definitely took me a few times to get into it. There's almost like a musical theater aspect to this album, and I think it does mix well, or even juxtaposes well, with some of those like more aggressive kind of extreme metal roots that kind of poke in, you know, here and there. And I think we've had a few releases like this in this like proggy gothic kind of space over the course of 2025, and I do think that In the Woods delivered the best of its kind, much like the Slowfall release was the best of that kind. Its big two competitors would have been the new Green Carnation and the new Novembra album, and I think if the list had expanded to top 20, Green Carnation probably could have made this list also. Unfortunately, just that Novembra album, I think, was just really not very good. But yeah, In the Woods was great though. Like, if you haven't, I feel like I recently saw a stream where the Heavy Metallurgy guys said that the new stuff wasn't very good. I disagree. I think this album is great, and I want to go back to see what I think of the previous ones that they've released since their reformation. Hopefully I like it just as much. Otra, again, not much to look at. Number 7 is Children of Eve by Nightfall. This was released May 2nd on Season of Mist. I did not realize that this Greek black metal band was even releasing albums again. I missed their comeback, I guess. But, you know, unlike a lot of melodic black metal, this doesn't really soar. It's a much drier sound with almost like a thrash kind of undercurrent to it. And when it does open up to these grander melodies, it feels, I don't know, I feel like it just kind of really focuses on flow, and you could really focus on like the meter of the vocals. The album is catchy and urgent and there's just enough atmosphere on here that you can kind of like see those gothic flourishes, and they kind of like slightly augment the album. There's some guest vocals on here. Everything about this record is just really grabs your attention, and it's just endlessly catchy, which I feel like has been like the theme of the year when it comes to albums I really cared for. Like, they need to stick with me. Putting this on, it's not very long, and it doesn't waste any time, and it's just really, really engaging. Just Greek black metal. When people describe things as like Hellenic black metal, I've always kind of struggled with that term, or even just the scene, because it doesn't really sound like much of the black metal that I'm already familiar with. But listening to this again, I can definitely see those connections between this and like Rotting Christ that are definitely cut from the same cloth. Number 6 on this list is Eventide on Aurora by White Rune. This was released October 31st on Hammer of Hate Records. This is a melodic symphonic black metal band out of Finland. I was watching another recent Heavy Metallurgy live stream where they were discussing Sacramentum's debut album, and one of them, one of the guests of that episode, I don't remember his name, I'm sorry, mentioned the term like castle metal, which I don't choose to engage with as an actual genre, but I mean, I think it does get the aesthetic quality of this across. It is like pure early Cradle of Filth worship. If you really like V Empire or Dusk and Her Embrace, like those specific albums, that is kind of what you're gonna get out of this record. It feels vampiric and cold and epic, just you know, key laden melodic black metal. There's even some guest narration by a woman who they do credit. I don't remember her name. The credit goes to Loviatar, I believe is the name, and she sounds like exactly like a young Sarah Jezebel Deva doing narration for early Cradle. It is almost uncanny. That being said, I actually do kind of like this more than Dusk and Her Embrace. I always found that album, for whatever reason, for early Cradle, just to be a little untouchable and hard to get into, but this really delivers riffs, melodies, atmosphere. It really soars. It just feels big and atmospheric, and it makes you think of like, I don't know, the imagery, like, though it is like fantastical and dark and abstract, it definitely does impart the feeling, or, you know, the imagery of bloodstains on velvet. It's kind of romantic in that way. This band has some ties to some major names in the Finnish black metal scene, so I hope they're not sketch. If they are, that's totally my bad. I did not know, just because I don't really know a lot about the black metal scene in general in Finland. So, like, I hope there's no weird ties to fascistic ideologies. You know, you can't do research on everyone, right? Talking about this next one is going to be fraught no matter what, so I might as well get into it. Number 5 is Souls by Stardust. This was released July 18th by Frontiers Records. I'm trying to avoid the glare there. So this is a symphonic progressive metal album, very well constructed. I didn't know anything about this band. This is my first exposure to this band. I listened to it. I really liked it. I bought it. This is what it is. It is a clean, heady, proggy, off-kilter, jazz-influenced proggy, like symphonic prog metal album. Very well done. They have guest vocalists, guest orchestral arrangements, choirs, and the singer is phenomenal. Great clean singing, very versatile, does growls. There's like a section on a song where it's just scatting for like 45 seconds. It's really, really good. And it's definitely out there, you know. That being said, like, you know, it's really good, clean singing. Simple hooks that really impact you. Really impactful, simple hooks, but the delivery is just phenomenal. A tier. Really strong album, and I don't want to take that away from this band. This is where things get fraught, because this band is from Israel, and there's a few times on the album where it's like, oh, I know exactly what the song is about. And I'm not going to hold it against them, because if one nation attacks your nation, of course, you're going to have strong emotions about it. However, they don't feel the need to address any other aspect of the, political relationships between these nations. They don't feel the need to talk about it. They have an immense privilege where they can release this album and tour it. The singer is taking photos with Flor Jansen at like some heavy metal festival. And meanwhile, especially as an American looking in from afar, like where my government is paying the Israeli government to bomb hospitals, level cities, and starve children, I have very mixed feelings about supporting this group at all. And again, I'm not going to hold that against them. I'm not going to hold their government's actions against them specifically, but the way that they don't feel much need to say anything about it. I saw a clip of a live stream where they were playing a live stream, and they had to stop because, of a bomb siren. And of course they in the streets walking to their shelter, they chant, "Make music, not war." But it's hard to not read into that the tacit "on us." Do not make war on us specifically. Everyone else is fine. Don't make war on us. So I'm gonna say it's really good. And I'm not gonna tell anyone to not support this band. I'm also not gonna tell them to support this band, but I will say it is really good, and I want to be very, very honest about my feelings about this album, because it is truly, truly, really catchy, great progressive metal. Simple, clean, heady, really nicely constructed. But the world is a mess, and I just want to address that. So because of that, I will try to link some Palestinian resources in the description. Free Palestine. Okay, that was the part of the list that I was really dreading. Luckily, we're gonna follow it up with a very not controversial band at all, and that is Screaming of the Valkyries by Cradle of Filth, released on March 21st on Napalm Records. And I know this band, they've been getting a lot of media attention in recent months for not good reasons, but it is still my number 4 album of the year. I think, when it comes to Cradle of Filth, you know exactly what you're gonna get. It's gonna be vampiric and gothic and a little, a little demonic. Has this, ever since the 2000s, they've definitely skewed less vampiric and more, I don't know, like Lovecraftian in aesthetic and tone. It's gonna be melodic as hell, symphonic, gothic grandiosity with, a black or thrash metal backbone. This definitely threads the needle between that thrash and black metal influence, though I would describe this primarily as just like a symphonic gothic extreme metal band or album. Look at them. Oh my god. This band is such a mess. I've already waxed poetically about this record a lot in previous videos. When I hauled it, and then in the best of the year so far video that I made. So I won't get into it that much, but it is, I think, one of Cradle of Filth's better records of the 21st century. And I really enjoyed it, and I'm sorry. I know. Like, I know Danny is kind of a dick, and I know their management is really bad and exploitative, and I know it's messy, but you know what? I'm sorry. It's just a really good record. Really good. I'm sorry. Okay, for reals this time, let's talk about bands that are a lot less controversial. We're in the top 3, so we're almost done. Top 3, number 3 is Ascension by Paradise Lost. This was released September 19th on Nuclear Blast Records. Paradise Lost is a band whose older and most notable material I mostly listen to out of obligation. I find very little joy in. But trust, with Ascension, I feel no such obligation. This is their 18th record, and probably my favorite that I've heard by this band. It is brutal, melodic, gothic, death, doom. Not quite perfection, but getting there. It's just big and dramatic and ghostly, and I love just how big it sounds. The best death doom, in my opinion, really lives and dies by those melodic, like, guitar leads. Just these big melodies that are just kind of like growing and pulling you in, just strong magnetism, and the vocal delivery is perfection. There's definitely some of that James Hetfield kind of throwbacks. If you've listened to early mid-career Paradise Lost. Nick definitely gets accused of like James Hetfield worship, and he can still do that, but I think his voice definitely has started to take on a character, or started, it's probably been like 22 decades, and I just don't really listen to this band. But he definitely has a character that's all his own, and he mixes the cleans with the growls really nicely. I think his growls definitely have survived the cruel passages of time more than, say, like Aaron Stainthorpe. Everything about this album, I think, works really well, and I'm surprised, and I should probably go back and listen to this band's older stuff. Yeah, check it out. If you haven't yet, check it out. If you don't like Gothic by Paradise Lost, don't worry about it. This is nothing like that, because I find that album kind of boring. But this has great flow, just oof, it is delicious. My number 2 record of the year is actually one that was previously my top record of the year, and that is Scorched Earth by How to Kitty for the Sky. This was released January 24th on AOP Records. This is the digibook cover with the logo, and then the actual booklet artwork is that, which looks amazing. I believe this band is based out of Germany. This is their like 7th or 8th album maybe. They are a post-metal band, very melodic, very atmospheric. I actually saw them live this year, and that was a great show. They were actually opening for Swallow the Sun, who released a great album last year, and that was a band I did get into last year. Anyways, I have talked about this album before, so I will try to keep it a little brief. It is keyboard-laden, atmospheric as all hell, melodic post-black metal. It really long songs. Like, I thought that this album would bother me because it is so long, but I really didn't have any issues staying with it. I think they changed things up in a way that's really keeps your attention, but also they still maintain kind of like a chorus, like a verse-chorus structure, so you know exactly where you are in the song at all times. My one complaint about this album was that the vocal delivery, because it's not really like typical black metal harsh vocals. It's kind of, a lot of it is like throaty, kind of shouty, like high-pitched full voice screaming, which, especially with the very emotive lyrics, can come off as kind of overwrought and maybe selling it a little bit too much. But by the by the time you get to track 3, you're kind of well adjusted into it. It is an incredible album. Maybe if it was a little shorter, I would be more willing to just kind of like throw it on, just because it is, I think, I have the digibook, which has bonus tracks, and it's like an hour 5, or something like that, maybe an hour 10. I don't know. But it is quite good, and don't get turned off by people saying that it's like that How to Kitty for the Sky is like the Linkin Park of black metal. That paints a terrible, terrible image. They're just kind of like, it's so emo, but I'm telling you, like, just, I love emotion in music. I think this is just the right amount of emotive. Just vicious. It's just so vicious and really well produced too. It really, in a world where even like other post black metal bands I listen to, or even just black metal bands in general, have the same commercial problem of just being overproduced, this, I think, kind of escapes it in a very in a really refreshing way for 2025. Great. Check it out, Scorched Earth, How to Kitty for the Sky. Before we get to number 1, I do want to shout out some honorable mentions. These are not going to be albums that could have made the list, but just fell short. If I wanted to do that, I would have just done a top 20. No, these are going to be records that either did not come out in a format that I would have bought, so I have nothing to show for it, or albums that I did pre-order or did order, but I just haven't gotten them yet. So again, couldn't show you anything. So those don't count. The honorable mentions are The Splintered Ore by Weft. This was released December 19th by Bind Room Recordings by Mr. Marty Worm himself here on YouTube. This is an American atmospheric folk black metal band, just dripping in violins. And it's just very creative and very wonderfully atmospheric and beautiful, and kind of unsettling. It's just a smidge, the right amount. Next honorable mention is Hexacratus by Blackthorn. This was released October 31st on Sound Age Productions. They are an all-female black metal band, gothic black metal band in Russia, and I didn't order it, unfortunately. The record label they have their warehouse in a different country that we also have sanctioned, I guess. So could not come. I'm trying to work all those details out with the record label because I didn't get it. I can't get it, so I'm gonna have my money back, right? Someone did write a review for it on the Metal Archives, and they did describe it as sounding like a Halloween movie soundtrack or whatever, as if that's a bad thing. That's kind of like why I wanted it. Like it's operatic and vampiric and dark and like kind of kitschy and spooky. That's what I like. Next, an album that I did order, and it currently has yet to be delivered, is Gloriae by Inhuman. This was released on November 7th by Alma Mater Records. They are a gothic metal band from Portugal, and they're very similar to something like Moonspell, middle career Moonspell, late 90s, early 2000s Moonspell. Good stuff, but I don't have anything to show for it. I have Birna by Wardruna. This was released January 24th on Columbia Records, neo-folk project, I believe out of Norway. I could be totally wrong. I want to say Norway. And the only reason why I did not pursue this album is just because I couldn't see myself really listening to it just, casually all that much. I kind of wish I had this much discretion across the whole year, because there's some stuff that I bought that I kind of wish I didn't. But that's a topic for a different day. 2026 is going to be a lot slimmer, I think. My last honorable mention is Shadowplay by Drudk, which came out March 21st on Season of Mist. Yes, on Season of Mist. And that is, of course, atmospheric black metal from Ukraine. I really, really did enjoy it. But again, same with the Wardruna, I just could not really see myself reaching for it a lot. So I chose not to purchase it, but it is quite good, and I did want to shout it out. And those are my honorable mentions. I lied. One more honorable mention, that is Arches and Enemies by Bitter Ruin. They are a British male-female alternative pop rock duo out of the UK. This is like their first album in more than 10 years, and it is, don't remember what record label, but it only came out on digital and vinyl, and I don't really want to start collecting vinyl. I have nothing to play it on, so I really love the album. Really, really wanted to get it. It's on CD, so I didn't. Please listen to it. So it's really, really good. I was actually really looking forward to that album when it was announced, so it's really good. So we've come to number 1, and I bet you're wondering, James, what could possibly have beat out everything else on this list? What outstanding, interesting, album could it have been to kick Catechies for the Skies' Scorched Earth off of the number 1 slot? It must be something really experimental and heady and obscure, and a band that's doing something way differently than everyone else. It's not really that. No, my number 1 for 2025, and so far for the decade, because it has beat everything else out so far for the decade, is Lord of the Lost, Opus Noir Volume 1, released August 8th by Napalm Records. This is the first of 3 albums. The third one has yet to come, by this German gothic metal goth rock band. This actually surprised me how much I liked this, because Lord of the Lost is a band that I have never really gotten into. They did a song for Eurovision a couple years ago. I thought that was okay. They're not that aggressive. They're not heavy metal all the time. They're very commercially minded, almost poppy. I never really got into this band until this album, because I think what they're trying to do here is a little ambitious in terms of production, not so ambitious in terms of songwriting. It's nothing terribly unique, but they are trying to mend some of these modern commercial hard rock, heavy metal, metalcore trends from bands like Sleep Token or Spirit Box or Poppy, stuff like that. Like Bring Me the Horizon is a big example, probably like the big name of this kind of modern, almost like Octane bands in the US and stuff. But that's they're trying to mend those trends and that production style with their gothic metal, goth rock backbone, and they have a bunch of guest vocalists. This album featured Sharon Den Adel of Within Temptation. It featured Stimmgewalt, which I believe is a German choir that does covers of metal music on a song. Whiplasher Bernadotte, who is in, what group is he in? Some German or Greek industrial group. Feuerschwanz, just the band Feuerschwanz, which is a folk metal band. I did listen to their new album this year also. Anyways, and Anna Maria Rose, who I believe is a string musician, so I believe violin or cello. Lots of guests, so you hear a lot of different personalities. The songwriting is very relatable, emotional, almost, again, musical theater-esque. Like, there's some nice switch-ups, and then it'll be kind of industrially produced gothic metal, and then you get hit with this more sing-songy stage performance section that feels very pointed and urgent emotionally, and the songwriting switches up in a way that really works. There's of course just some fun songs on here, like the Lords of the Fire with Feuerschwanz is very much like a happy, like folkier kind of rah drinking track. Very power metal-y. The opener, Bazaar Bazaar, definitely feels like the best aspects of something like Sleep Token, just done better in a different format. There's some grandiosity in here and drama that I really appreciate, and I can't wait to see what Volume 3 looks like. Volume 2 I thought was really good. Well, it was pretty good. Volume 1, they definitely, like, I don't want to say that they shot their wad, but they really did something really spectacular with this one. And this surprised me. Biggest, like, huge surprise. I didn't think I was going to like this as much, but it is killer. It is very vocally driven. Like, I'm not going to take that away from anyone that says, you know, it's not amazing because there's not full of solos and, like, the riffing isn't the focus. It is vocally and atmospherically driven, first and foremost. And it's just a really good, modernized gothic metal sound that I thought really came together nicely in a way that topped my list. All right, and that is my top 15 albums of the year list. I know this is a little late. Thanks for watching. I want to do a different video for some superlatives, like biggest surprise, biggest blah, 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 you know, all that. Or like, you know, best album cover, best cover song, best, you know, some bests and worsts categories, like biggest disappointment. I want to do a superlative video, and that'll be later down the line. I'll probably get that out by the end of the month, hopefully. Before that, I do want to do the heavy metallurgy tag, or the metal tag for 2026. I have already started taking notes about what albums I would like to show off for that. So look out for that in the coming week-ish, I hope. If not, maybe a little later than that. I'm always late for stuff like this. It's a little update. Thanks for watching. Please tell me that I have terrible taste in the comments, and I'll see you in the next one. Thank you. Bye.